If you are an actor and you have questions for the casting directors, this episode might be just for you, because my today's guest is Nicole Ricciardi from Ricciardi Casting. I'm an actor myself, and I have asked her questions that interest me about the industry, spotlight, and the casting process. So if you have questions for the casting directors, the chances are I have asked those questions in this episode. And if I didn't, please leave the comment. Leave comments because Nicole might come back on another episode, and she might be not the last casting director that I invite to the podcast. This is Beyond Real Talk. My name is Andrea Gozin. Enjoy. Nicole, do you like actors?
What a question to open with. Of course I do.
All right, then let's help them, because I have lots of questions, important ones, and I want this episode to be as useful as possible. But before we start talking about casting specifics, what you do, what actors think you do, what they should do, what they should stop doing, what are your credentials? How are you involved in casting? Since when? What did you do before? Why people should listen to you?
Well, I mean, I studied performing arts for 5 years. And I had various jobs within the industry, from voiceover to script editing to putting on my own productions. And so I know what it's also like to be a performer. I used to go to auditions myself and do tribute shows and all the things we need to do to make money. And it's kind of a long-winded story, but I ended up working as an assistant to a casting director by pure luck. And I just loved it. And it really worked with how my brain works naturally. And it got me really excited, realizing that there's something out there I could do, because I always knew I wanted to be in the industry, but I didn't know in which regard. And so I spent a lot of time during my studies and a little bit after trying to explore which avenue I'm going to take. And so once I got to work as a casting assistant, I realized, okay, this is something that excites me. And so I got to work as an assistant to Jeremy Zimmerman, who I think more back in the day, but he's still known now, cast a lot of films and some TV. And I went on to assist Belinda Norcliffe, who casts a lot of commercials. And then, as you know, I worked in an agency and I represented actors. And so I got to see that side of things, which really gave me perspective and taught me how to liaise from both sides and gave me even more hands-on experience with actors. And then I also assisted Fiona Cross with casting. And I started to cast my own projects because I have friends in the industry who were involved in other projects or making their own work. So I started to cast for them and slowly building my portfolio. And yeah, so I just have a crossover of casting assistant experience, as well as kind of throwing myself in the deep end and casting things for indie projects and other people that I knew who were making things, as well as then working in agencies.
Why casting? Like, well, right now you're working in casting. Like, why? Why that particular part of the industry?
I love it. I'm excited by it. I love seeing a project come together. I love working with actors in the room. It's just kind of starting to visually piece things together when you read a script and you understand the style and what's required, and then you start going, oh, this person could be great and that person could be great. Or you put a brief out and you get these tapes in and you see things you weren't expecting to see. And it's just, I don't know what it is about it, but to me that's very exciting, and it just stimulates my brain in a way that I enjoy and that I feel I add value to, because I add value to too, because I have different perspectives and appreciation for different styles of film, and just having grown up watching a lot of films and being someone who loves, to deep dive into TV series and all these things. It's just the way my brain works and pieces things together, really. And I wanted to start my own, I don't want to call it a business, but I guess my own business and my own portfolio where I get to do that and help bring people's projects to life. and help them see different perspectives too, and open them up to more opportunities. When people come to me with a project, they don't know what's possible for the cast necessarily. So I get to open up their worlds and present and opportunities to them, and help them form the characters in their mind. That often happens in the room too. It's like there's a character on a script, and then you bring multiple actors into the room and you work on it with them. And then as you're working on it with them on the tapes and in the room, the characters start to develop in the director's mind. And it's a great experience.
I want to separate today's episode into two parts. One will be longer. It's like a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions for you. And also I want to do a little practical thing. I want you to help me to look into my Spotlight profile and tell me honestly what you think about it. What works, what doesn't work, why, what should I change, what should I invest into, and just mention best practices of keeping your profile well prepared from casting director's perspective. What would you say is the most challenging part of your job, and what's the most rewarding?
Okay, the most challenging part, I want to say, is in two parts. One is just industry related in terms of the business side of the industry and what they expect, and just going, oh, well, we want this person because they have this many followers and money and that kind of thing. Just being after the money and taking out the creative aspect of who is actually good for the job, or all the actors who could be brilliant but don't get the opportunity because they need a name to sell things on and stuff like that. So that part is challenging, just as something I wish didn't have to be a factor. And then the other part is, for every 100 people you've seen for a role, there's 99 people who don't get the role. So having to tell...
Don't I know it?
Yeah. So having to tell people, and really make them understand that we do value their time and we do value their skill, and that sometimes it's got nothing to do with, them not delivering a certain level or anything. Like, sometimes they're just brilliant, but there was just someone else who got the role. So yeah, just that aspect of having to disappoint people.
Are you trying to always come back to the people who didn't get it?
I do. I try to. Anyone who's taped, I wouldn't be able to give a personal reply to 200 people each, but I would say, we want to the next round, or we don't need to take things any further. And then anyone who's recalled, I try to give a little bit more of a personal feedback if I'm able to. And then anyone we've seen in the room, same thing. So I do try to let anyone who's given their time and effort to audition, at least let them know. But in terms of how much feedback you can give, there's also so many people, you can't give individual feedback to every single person. And I know that's something actors really, really want. And sometimes I think they're not going to benefit from having the feedback, because there isn't anything they could have done differently, because it's not about what they did.
It's just about who they are.
No, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's not you, it's me.
Yeah. No, look, I do understand it. I do understand it. I spoke about it on the podcast many times. Like, I've been doing it for a little bit. So I do understand that sometimes it's not just it is about me, but it's not about me at the same time. It's kind of like they need someone else. So it is about you, but it's not your fault because you did everything that you could, and it's fine, and you just don't fit in. Just the only problem is when it's constantly, not about you, but you don't get it, then you start to think like, what should I do? What is there to do? No. Anyways, can you describe the casting process for actors, just so we understand what happens behind those doors? Because many actors think that of casting directors as gatekeepers or whatever. But like, what is the process? So since you received a brief, what happens next?
I mean, I think it really depends on the project. It's not going to be the same for everything. And it depends on how that casting director works and what production wants and what the director wants. So it could be anything from receiving the script and the character descriptions, chatting to the director and producer about who they see or examples of the types of people they see in those roles and what they desire. And then putting a brief out and I guess first analyzing the needs, creating the brief, putting the brief out, and then bringing in options that are exactly what has been asked for, but as well as some options that maybe broaden their perspectives a bit and say, this isn't exactly what you've asked for, but I think these options carry the essence of the character and could support. And, just offering more options and perspective too. And then watching, requesting tapes. So all the admin of sending out the tape requests, watching the tapes, deciding which to recall or pass along to the director, and then releasing people who are not needed anymore. Then it depends on the project whether you'd be recalling in person or doing a second tape and that kind of stuff. So ideally you'd be in the room next. And if it's a cast where there's a lot of actors working together in a scene, then setting up a schedule where you can have people chemistry read opposite each other, trying to get everyone to those auditions and make sure that everyone gets a time slot that they're able to make and that kind of thing. And pairing people up who you want to see together and seeing the dynamics in the room and then saying, okay, you wait here and you come back in. And you just constantly solving this mystery and this puzzle until everything comes together and makes sense kind of thing. Do that in the room, have sort of debriefs with the team and discuss, okay, who we liked and who we thought, was best for the role and why. And then maybe providing counterpoints of view. So if the director says, oh, well, I like this person because of X, Y, Z, and then me saying, okay, I get that, but what about this person because they showed this and this and this, which, and just having that back and forth until we land on something that we feel just really supports the story and the script the best. And there's many aspects involved in that. And then offering roles and people accepting and, if people aren't available anymore, something reshuffling all those thoughts and going out and trying to get other people in. And
how many people usually do you see for different types of roles? What is kind of the maximum that you ever saw for something? And do you set up some limits for yourself? For example, this is not the biggest role, so we will see maximum this amount of people and we will choose someone from them. Or it doesn't work like this?
It depends on the project and the character and how many people apply. In recent projects I've done for short films, I'd say I'd request 100 to 200 tapes for each role.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then...
Tapes?
Yeah. But putting that in context is that I've had about 300 to 1,000 submissions for each role.
Yeah.
So I don't want to watch 100 tapes, but I also want to offer people the opportunity, anybody who looks like they could be suitable, the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I don't want to narrow that down too much either. And then I say, I might request 100 tapes, but of that 100, only 70 people tape in the end. And of those 70 tapes, only 30 tapes are good. And so then actually I'm only working with 30 tapes that I have to narrow down to 20 or 10 that I can then take to the director as options. And then they will say to me, okay, out of these 20, these 10 are my favorite. Let's recall these 10. So it sounds like a lot, but it's also necessary to have that many options because as useful as we try to make a spotlight CV or a profile or a showreel, you can't really tell just from that. You know, you have to be able to see them in action to tell. And sometimes the tape is good, but then you go, oh, it's actually not the right energy. It's not, I'm not saying people sending me terrible tapes, you know, or sometimes people are sending terrible tapes. but yeah, it's difficult to predict. And so, yeah, you have to offer that many options in order to come out with 10 strong options, and then take it from there.
My podcast is usually about, you know, how someone's career begins. You started writing scripts. Where did that come from? Why did you start doing that? Where did it begin?
My mum did amateur dramatics. I didn't even know I wanted to be an actor when I went to university. I just wanted to get laid.
The audition went amazingly. I was like loving my life, feeling great, really wanted to do the film. This was years ago. And I went to lunch with my agent and she goes, they did not like what you did.
And I really went for this note because it was one of those words that you have the belt to reach. And just soared past it.
What your secret is to your great head of hair, but we'll do that another time.
I have nothing to do with it. It just grows. What can I say? Thank God.
Whenever I'm feeling like I might give up, I'm going to watch this clip and just remind myself, keep going, never give up. If you're up for 25, 30 minutes, that would be great.
I think you'd be bored out of your mind after 14 minutes.
That's genius.
Watch or listen to the Life in Film podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. What's your story?
We'll talk about, self-tapes later. Is there anything that actors consistently misunderstand about what you do?
Well, like you mentioned earlier, is that I think some actors think that casting directors gatekeep. And I think similarly, production sometimes thinks that agents gatekeep. And I kind of want people to suddenly realize that we're all on the same team and we kind of all want the same thing. Actors want to work, agents want their actors to work. Productions and casting directors want the best actors for the role. They want to make the best production possible. And so we're not trying to gatekeep anything. If anything, we are on the actor's side. We want you to be good. When we call you in, we want you to be good. And if we're not calling you in, it's because for whatever reason, we already know that you're not going to get the role. And it's not for any bad reason. It's just, we're not going to waste your time. We're not going to call you in knowing that we're going to reject you. Anyone we call in is because we want them to bring us what we're looking for. So any sort of, if you want to call it gatekeeping, is actually more preempting situations and needs beforehand and knowing how to be more specific. And I think that's a really important part of what we do that people underestimate, is that we're kind of like liaisons. We're preempting, this is what the agent's going to ask for. This is what this actor is going to be able to bring to that. This is what the production's going to expect. And we're juggling all these different aspects and trying to make it all come together in one place, because it's never just about one thing. It's like, it's anything in our lives is never just about one thing, It's not just about whether you're a good actor, or it's not just about how you look, or it's not just about what skill. It's balancing all of those things and then going, okay, now we look at your availability. Now we look at the agent. Now we look at what production's going to say. Now we look at keeping all those things in mind and bringing it all together in a way that then works. Do these two actors work opposite each other on screen? Okay, this person has great presence, but can they take direction? And it also, again, project depending. If you've got a short film on a low budget and you only have 2 days to shoot, you can't have someone on set who is not going to be focused and deliver. So you need to go, okay, this actor is maybe not exactly what the director had in mind initially, but they are so strong, they're going to deliver. You know that in those 2 days, you're going to get all the takes you need, and they're going to apply themselves to that role and they're going to deliver a brilliant job. Versus maybe someone it's a lot of like street casting these days where they'll get someone in who naturally has the essence of a character but isn't necessarily an actor. And there can be benefit to that. But again, if you're looking at restrictions and you're going, okay, now we're taking the risk of someone who's not an actor, bringing them on set and hoping to get out of them what we need, you don't have the time for that. You don't have the money for that. So then offering, considering all these different needs and offering that input to every person. So talking to the production, talking to the director, talking to the agents saying, can we have this and this and this? And us saying, we can't do this, but we can do that. Or we can absolutely do that. And all that back and forth. We are on everyone's side and we're trying to bring everyone together. I say we, I'd speak for myself. I can't speak for other casting directors, but it's what I hope every casting director is striving to do.
Is there anything that actors should hear, should know, and they probably don't want to hear it? Any information that actors really should understand?
Releasing the need to control the outcome. It's like you can only do what you can do. We've offered this and said this is what we require, and okay, you've given your best to what we've asked for and you've delivered that. After that, you can't control the outcome. There's nothing more you can do. And there's so many actors who want to do more. They're like, oh, I've done this, but I want to do more. Can I reach out to the casting director? Can I call the office? Can I message them on Instagram? Can I add this footage? Can I do that? And none of that is actually going to affect the outcome. We know what we've asked for. You've done what we've asked for. So make what is within your control, do to the best of your ability, and then release it. Because trying to control the outcome after that will only drive you crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. And that applies to every aspect of our lives, really.
Yeah, if it was so easy. When is a good moment to reach out to casting directors as an actor? Is there ever? For example, I know that I will update my showreel September when something comes out that I really was waiting for more than a year and a half. Is it a good idea to kind of look at the casting directors who cast projects where I think I would be suitable, fittable, or whatever, and drop them an email like, hello, I'm this and this. I like the projects you work on, and I think I would be a good fit. So here's my new showreel. Thank you very much. Or
yeah, I mean, as long as what you're reaching out with has a very specific purpose and it gets to the point, and you've just, like you said, you've just worked on a new project, you've updated your showreel, this casting director is currently working on a project that you're suitable for. So you're reaching out, you're saying, this is me, this is what I do, here's my latest showreel, that's it, kind of thing. Or you're working with your agent and you're getting your agent to do that on your behalf, and you're getting them to keep an eye out for projects that are very specific to that. I think there is such a thing as reaching out too much and then running the risk of, email into the file or delete email because the person keeps reaching out. And casting directors do take note. And so they know who you are if you've reached out. So if you're going to reach out, again, reach out with new information and valuable information, not just, I've got new headshots, and I understand why actors want to do that, because they want to feel more in control and they want to feel proactive. But ultimately, the systems in place, like Spotlight CVs and agents putting you forward for things and all these things, are already running. And so if you've got new headshots, you've probably already seen it. So a role's gone out, your agent's gone, oh, you're perfect for that. They've put you forward. We've seen your profile. We've seen your headshots. So you're just doubling up on information we already have. And when offices are very busy, that can be frustrating, not because people are trying to be nasty or don't want to hear from you. It's literally just, there's only so much capacity
of course
one person can have when so many people want an opportunity. So it's difficult to say. I do think there's value to it if you do it the right way.
How about sending chocolates to the casting director that cast you after the project was done?
I think that's always lovely. I mean, who wouldn't want to, receive a gift and a thank you? And I think sometimes it is a thankless job. So yeah, I mean, it depends what the motivation and intention is behind it, I guess.
If you've been cast into something from actors, it's usually thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I mean that's lovely. Yeah.
How much power does actually casting director usually have on the projects? Or I know it probably depends on type of a project, and because I've heard a lot of even that sometimes directors on some network productions have less say in casting than, for example, producers or broadcasters. So how much power do you actually hold?
Like you said, it depends on the project. So sometimes it's a case of getting options really specific to what has been asked for. And then you send it off to the director and they come back and they say, we want these 5 people. Usually, on commercials and things like that, or much bigger films where the director is a lot more involved. So it's maybe in a Marvel or something, and the director handpicks everybody, but you bring them the options and then they decide in the end. Sometimes directors are more open and there's a back and forth and you have conversations, and they rely on the casting director a little bit more to guide them, and they can, offer them input and larger perspectives. And then there's indie projects, which I love working on, where I guess there's both sides. Again, there's production teams who want to be a lot more involved, but usually they're open to the conversation and the back and forth, and you decide together. Or there's those who maybe go, I don't know anything about the casting. I just wrote it and I just want to direct it, and they hand over to you a little bit more. But ultimately, I want to say it is always up to them. So I can still bring. There's never a project where I've decided who the cast is and the director just says, okay, it is always up to them. I can bring it down to the last 2 and help them get to that point. But they always have an idea of what they want, and they are the ones who are going to choose in the end.
Do you ever have to fight for some actors that you believe are really strong and good for a particular project?
Yeah, I mean, fight not as in
not in octagon.
Just advocate for them and really explain your thinking and why you're coming from this perspective. Yeah, definitely. And I love to do that because, not everyone is able to look at it from all perspectives because they haven't got that experience. So
are there any stories of your of the actors that you actually fought for and they got the job? And
yeah, I mean, there was I don't know again how specific to be. There's been projects where there's someone who is just clearly just a brilliant actor, and we're really struggling to find this role, and the role has a very clear essence to it, but the type of person who is this role is not ever an actor kind of person, if that makes sense. Let's say for argument's sake, they're a builder. It's very difficult to find an actor who naturally has a builder's energy. And so we kept looking for the builder energy, but we weren't finding it. But there was this brilliant actor, and I was going, he'll be able to do it. I know when you meet him, he doesn't have a builder's energy, but he will deliver. He's a trained, skilled actor. And just really kind of pushing for that. And then in the end, they said, you know what, you're right, we agree with you. Cast him, and he's brilliant. And I worked on another film. He also applied for that, and the director loved him again. I cast him more than once. So
how does it feel seeing someone who you were, maybe not even fighting for, but who you were involved in casting on big screen?
I don't know. It's great seeing things work out and come together and going, yes, yeah, that's why. Yes. you know, but only because they are delivering, you know. I can't take credit for them delivering.
Well, I mean, you found them to a degree.
It feels rewarding. I don't know if that's specific enough.
When you're looking at some actors' profiles, what are the biggest red flags for you?
I guess if there's been no effort put into the CV, so there's no materials, very little information, maybe just a headshot and 1 or 2 credits. And not because 1 or 2 credits isn't enough, but you can see they've not taken the time to fill out the information. So it's just kind of like, well, what do you want me to call you in on? You giving me one photo and wanting me to give you the opportunity, it's not enough. Yeah, and then things that contradict each other. So maybe someone's saying, does a brilliant American accent, and then has footage of themselves doing an American accent and they can't do an American accent. Because then you're going, well, now I've lost my trust in this person because they're saying they can do something that they can't do. And it's okay if you can't do an American accent, just don't put it on your CV.
How often do actors put on skills that they're, you know?
Too often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, it's like a legend that, you know, goes around that people say like, yeah, actors do that. And like, why would you really do that?
I don't know. Maybe they really think that they can, or they think that if offered the opportunity, they'll suddenly be able to deliver. And it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. It's one thing to go, okay, I do accent training 5 minutes every single day. I'm working on it. Once you get to a point where you're confident, you put it on your CV, but you know that you spend 10 minutes a week, you know, practicing. Fine. But yeah, saying that you can do something because you maybe did a class during uni once, and then it comes to actually delivering and you can't because you haven't done it for ages, or you've never actually developed that skill to the point where it needs to be. It just makes casting directors lose faith in you. And the same goes for agents. There's so many agents who push their actors with notes and say, does a brilliant this or that. And then you see their tapes and you're like, but they don't. And I'm like, why would I trust this agent if they are saying this? I'm like, they can't see that it's not what they're saying it is. So yeah, it's a very fine line to walk there. I think people think whatever gets me in the room and then it'll be fine. It's like, no, be honest. Present what you have with confidence. That's enough. And if you don't have what they're looking for this time, there'll be another time where you do.
Don't lie about your skills. Maybe there is something I need to remove from mine. I mean, I played football semi-professionally.
Yeah.
But it was 20 years ago, so
yeah.
Maybe. All right. What's more important, do you think? Talent or professionalism?
I don't think one can work without the other. At least not long term. You can have all the talent in the world. If you're not professional, eventually people won't want to work with you anymore. You can be super professional, but if you don't have the talent behind the reliability, then you're going to constantly feel overlooked and frustrated. Talent is a difficult concept. I mean, people can be talented, but people can also develop skill. So I prefer to say skill and professionalism, but obviously there are people who are naturally talented who do get opportunities just because they're naturally talented and they're not as skilled and they haven't trained. But I think that eventually fades out if they cannot maintain professionalism.
Is there something like, is there a moment when you understand, yes, this actor, I really want to get them. Is there anything specific about it, or just many different things?
I guess there's many different things because it's always for a different character and a different project. There's some people who just know how to project their energy and their attentions and their emotions through their eyes and their being. So any actor who can take what they understand and bring it into a sense of delivery and feeling is going to have presence. Yeah, it's this where you start to go into untangible concepts about people's energy and mindset, and that's all got to do with whatever actors are doing in their own time to maintain their own mental health and their own sense of confidence and their own sense of vitality, and bringing that quiet confidence but tangible presence into a room and just delivering and knowing how to bring that forward.
Are there tiers of actors, for example, in terms of experience? So you basically look at someone's profile and you see like, this actor has 2 credits and we know that we can't really bring them to read for example, for main character. So we will, like, if you have a couple of lines, we bring the pizza in the scene. That's only the actors who don't have that much experience. If you want to be auditioning for something bigger, you need to prove yourself in terms of bigger CV.
Again, project dependent. I'm going to guess that if it's something much bigger, they're not going to see someone with 2 credits for a leading role. They've probably already offered the leading roles like directly to known actors or to agencies that they often work with, and they're only casting unknown actors in supporting roles and so forth. If we're talking about, let's say, an indie project that I'm working on and I get to make that call, if the actor is right for it and their materials are good, or they just look like they could possibly have the essence of the character, I will get them to tape. But it also depends on if we have the funding or not. So sometimes if a project comes fully funded, this is the rate, you can cast whoever you want. Then having 2 credits doesn't matter. I mean, as in, it doesn't matter if it seems too little, because as long as you can deliver and you're going to do the job, and you know, then great. Now you have a 3rd credit for your CV. But if they're going, okay, well, you know, we've got financiers interested, but we need somebody who's done a couple TV shows. You know, they might not be a famous actor, but we need someone who we know can carry a project and they have those credentials behind them, and there's a little bit of something there that's going to just add credibility. Then that's when you go, okay, I can only call in specific people. So it's all just going to depend on what I have to work with. But in an ideal world where a project comes to me fully funded and I can cast anybody, I'm gonna give everybody the opportunity who seems like they could be good for the role. And then if, you know, you will be able to see in their tapes and their recalls if they're ready to carry a lead role or not. And sometimes being ready to carry a lead role actually comes from that on-set experience, which is not something any actor wants to hear, because everyone wants to believe that they are ready, you know, from the get-go without the experience and the credits. But there is so much to say for having that actual experience, the camera in your face, the lighting in your face, listening to a director, being on set, knowing what it's like to show up on time, all those things that's required. If you're filming 30 days in a row, you know, that's a discipline you've had to learn. And if you're coming straight out of uni and you haven't had to do any of that, the chances of you being able to carry it, you know, some people can, some people can't, even if there are good actors and they need to build up that experience. So I guess that, again, it comes down to the casting director being able to tell, being able to see the signs in the recall, saying, okay, were they able to take direction in the room? Did they listen to what we said? Did they come prepared? And no matter how good they look for the role or how many of the boxes they tick, if those things aren't in place, you might go, okay, they're not ready.
Can One Bad Audition hurt your reputation or, you know, hurt your starting career? How much time do you need as a casting director to call the same actor again after bad tape?
I mean, yeah, definitely. Everything we do leaves an impression. I'd like to think you can spot a difference between someone who's just had a bad day or a bad moment versus someone who has a disregard for what they do. I'd like to say if I saw someone who did maybe a bit of a bad tape, let's say they're a graduate and they've just started taping and they don't really know the world and it wasn't so great, but 6 months later, a year later, whatever it is, I see their profile again. They've got new headshots. They've got showreel material. They've done things that show they've been working on their skill. Then yeah, of course, because we're all learning and growing every day. So offer them the opportunity again. But I think it's just up to the casting director to use their discretion. I know that there's things in the industry where people have been offered work and then they behave unprofessionally. They maybe break contract or they speak badly of the production or whatever it is. And people go, well, they're never going to work again. But it's really up to the production to decide, okay, we give them a second chance. We give them a warning and we give them a second chance. Or actually, we don't want to work with them again. And I think repeat offenders, people who are constantly, if they come in without a sense of humility and without the openness to learn and without the openness to take feedback from the casting director and the director and their agents, they're not willing to listen to their agents. Those are the actors who eventually don't get work anymore because they're unwilling to listen to anybody. Whereas the ones who make mistakes but are willing to listen and grow and learn and then make different choices, can only hope that people will give them a second chance, and I certainly would.
Have you ever witnessed anyone damaging their career like this, unintentionally?
Yeah, not directly in anything I worked on, but from an agency's perspective, hearing stories from other, like, oh, this person on that production did that and this, and again, I'm not sure I can be too specific, but yeah, I've definitely heard stories of people breaking contract to go do other things or posting things on social media that breaks their NDAs and everything, and then no one wants to work with them again.
Is there anything that actors usually don't think about, but it actually genuinely affects their casting?
I don't want to say that they don't think about. I think some actors do, but the actors who get it wrong are the ones who are not thinking about it, if that makes sense. So not putting effort into making yourself presentable for your tape. Now, I don't mean you have to put on makeup or you have to have a professional setup or a backdrop or anything like that. But I watched tapes where people have literally it looks like they're in their pajamas and they've just rolled out of bed and they've quickly taped because they only have 5 minutes left in their day. And it's like, you either have time to put into your craft or you don't. And I understand, like, of course, sometimes you do only have 10 minutes to tape, but then make sure that those are the most valuable 10 minutes that you can put into it. Maybe plan, this is my self-tape outfit, my like generic self-tape outfit. And so if the role doesn't require a specific kind of character, then okay, I put this outfit on, I have this light on me, I will always look presentable, slick your hair back, whatever it is that you need to do to show that you haven't just rolled out of bed and spent 2 minutes taping it because your agent forced you to tape. You know what I mean? Like, people want to see, depending again on the project, but I'm mostly working on films and short films and indie films and stuff. So we want to know that the actors are actually interested in the project. If they're not putting even a little bit of effort into the tape, we don't get the sense that they're actually interested in doing the project.
Let's talk about casting type. Is it true that mostly you cast what walks through the door? Like, if you look the part, you look the far part. If you don't look the part, then no point.
Again, it's going to depend on what the production team wants and how specific they are and how adamant they are about it. Sometimes it is that way, sometimes it isn't. I like to broaden options. I like to think out of the box and offer, at least present something different. Again, as long as the essence of the character is still there and as long as the story is still being served, I don't like to be too specific unless the character is really written a certain way. They have to look this way. They have to be this way for a reason that has like actual motivation, right? So like, yeah, I said this before, I like to have options that look exactly like what has been asked for, as well as other options, and present them all. And if you're working with a creative team who have integrity and just want the best out of the project, they will end up coming back and with some of the options that they wouldn't have imagined before, because those actors have delivered a really strong tape and nailed the essence of the character. So just for argument's sake, they wanted someone with blonde hair, but now someone with brown hair has really just like nailed it. Then I'll go, okay, now we're willing to look at this option kind of thing. So yeah, I like to work that way. I'm sure there are casting directors who like to just keep it to exactly what's been asked for. So it's just going to depend from project to project. I think a more helpful answer is if you've been called in, then you are being considered right for it. So I know sometimes a brief will say, we're looking for this, this, and this. And then a casting director will call you in and you read it and you go, but that's not really me. But you need to trust that they've seen something in you that they might like to see in the character. So trust if you're being called in, you're right for it. You might not be right for the specific lines they've put there, but you're right for something to do with that character. So they want to see you, and they don't want to waste their own time and they don't want to waste your time. If you've been called in, you're right for it. Unless they're saying absolutely has to be able to somersault. I mean, I don't somersault. You can get your agent to say, do they have to somersault? You know?
But from your perspective, do you think actors should kind of lean into their casting types or know their USPs, unique selling points, or they should fight against them?
I think that just depends from person to person. I think some people work better because they know they have a very clear vision. This is my casting type. This is what I have to offer. These are my skills. This is it. Boom. And that's where all my focus is. And other people like to be broader than that, and they have multiple skills and they have a broader spectrum of what they have to offer, and they want to explore all of that. I think as long as you can be honest with yourself about the level of the different casting types you want to explore, and to what degree you can deliver that with sincerity, it doesn't have to be either or. I think it works for some people to have a type, but if that's frustrating to you and you feel limited and creatively stifled by that, then don't do that to yourself. Broaden what you have to offer and just present all of that with confidence. Oh, I can do this and this and this, and then show that you can do all those things. All of us have a range as human beings. You just need to decide how much of your range you are offering as a performer.
All right, let's talk about self-tapes and auditions, because that's a big thing right now. Mostly self-tapes, because I'm not sure how often you deal with in-room auditions at the moment. But since the COVID, I think I've been in a room maybe once or twice. Does it happen often in your field now?
It depends. Sometimes the directors and the producers are quite old school and they really just want to see people in the room. But because self-tapes are more efficient, that is the majority. That's how the majority of things are cast now. Or there'll be a first round of self-tapes and then they will call in people for in-person recalls. To me, it doesn't make sense anymore to do a first round in the room unless You are being very specific about the actors who you're calling in. So you're already going, okay, I'm only calling in 20 actors who have really strong CVs who I've worked with before or who have really strong showreels or whatever it is. Then you do a first round in the room, fine. But that happens so rarely. You want to be able to kind of give more people the opportunity in a self-tape and then decide who you're going to call into the room.
With self-tapes, what makes you stop watching after 20 seconds?
I don't know how to define it. Sometimes you can just tell. You can just tell if they are right or not for it. There's just something about the way that someone will engage you on camera paired with whether their energy is right for the character. I don't have a way to define it for you. You really just can't tell.
Unless it's really bad, then you can't define it, but you can't say.
Yeah.
All right, but from a technical point of view, what are the minimums and what are the maximums? And by maximums, I mean, I know people who do full-on production for self-tapes and how helpful it is. And what are the minimums?
Yeah. I mean, minimums must be able to see you, right? So it doesn't have to be professional lighting, but light on you from the front. So your camera is there and the light's coming from there on you, so you can see your face. And also, just making sure you have the correct angles and eye lines so that we can see what's happening in your face. You can see the expressions in your eye and the light in your eyes. You don't want to be looking down and I can't see your eyes. Obviously, there's moments in the script that might call for you to go inward. But ultimately, we want to be able to have access to the emotion in your eyes and see your breath and all that kind of stuff. Placement, eyeline, lighting, and vocal presence. If I can't hear, I understand that, if you're on set, you're going to have a microphone and the camera is going to be right on you. But for a self-tape, you don't necessarily have that. And then so when actors go too inward, and they kind of whisper and they're dropping here. I'm like leaning into my laptop. I'm like, I can't hear what you're saying. And if I can't hear what you're saying, I can't tell if you're going to be good playing this role. I need to be able to hear what you're saying in your articulation as well as your vocal presence. So the basics of, if you take away the technical aspects of the lighting and the eye line with the camera, it's really just the basics of we need to be able to see you and hear you. Almost in a theatrical sense, not that your performance needs to be theatrical, but when you train for theater, you learn that when you're on stage, you have to cheat certain angles so that people can always see you. And you need to be able to be vocally present so that people can always hear you. So when you don't have all the tech of a professional set, you need to cheat those things in your tape so that we can still see everything we need to see and hear everything we need to hear.
And if people go full on production, does it help?
In terms of editing their tapes and things like that, I don't think it's ever necessary. I think sometimes if people do that and they have fun with it and it looks good and it's still delivered what's been asked for, then why not? But, your time's really valuable and you've already spent time learning the script and taping. If you don't have an extra hour, you don't have to feel like you now need to spend an extra hour editing your tape to look like a full production, because it's not going to land you the job if you're not right for it to begin with. So it's a nice thing you can do if it's something you enjoy and you have the time for and you feel like it uplifts your performance, but it's never actually necessary. And I don't think it will ever be asked for.
It's just, I have a friend who I do go for the same parts very often, and he usually gets the parts. And I know that he obsesses about his self-tapes. He wants it to be absolutely perfect in every way, every little detail. And then there is me, who I also really try really hard on my self-tapes, but sometimes I kind of just let it go. I feel like, okay, it's still a self-tape. I hope that you don't expect it to be absolutely perfect on every little level, every little detail. I try to do it as good as possible, but at the same time, I can let it go a little bit and don't spend 2 days on it when I can spend 3 hours on it, which is a lot anyways. And here is my thing, his thinking. He thinks like, so casting directors see so many tapes that if it's not perfect, you already kind of like cut yourself out a little bit out of the pool of people who may put even more effort into it. So I kind of need to know what casting directors think about that.
No, because you can go full out production for your tape and still not deliver what they're looking for. You know, it still boils down to if you're right for the role, if you are a strong actor, if you've done what they've asked for. Those are still the defining factors. So if your tape looks well set up, but you haven't edited to go from room to room and all these things, they've seen all they need to see. They've seen how you look, they see how you act, and whether you can deliver what they've asked for. That's all they need to know. I understand, okay, you're looking at 100 tapes and this tape looks better, but that's not what we're actually looking for. We're looking to see, can you do the job? Are you the best person for the job? We're not looking to see how creative your editing skills are.
But what if there are two actors who both delivered, but one actor just, has a little bit better qualities of tape? Can it swing you or?
Well, it's going to depend on the performance in the self-tape. Maybe it's a thing of someone who does, like you said, maybe obsess about the tape a little bit more, has done multiple takes and edited in the best takes and everything. So they're going to deliver the best performance because they've put so much effort in.
Can you do that? Can you? Because here's the thing.
I don't know, the question's becoming too complicated.
Here's the thing, because when you say edit the tapes, I feel like I never edit the tape apart from cutting and improving the sound or whatever. Like I never take okay, I'll take this bit from this take, I'll take this bit from this take, because this how
okay, so maybe I've misunderstood what you mean by production.
I mean production quality,
Because when you say production, I'm thinking the first thing that's coming to mind for me is commercials, where the script is swishing. Someone's in the kitchen and then they're in the living room and they're this, and there are actors who then film all these separate scenes and they chop them all together and they do all of that. And there's others who will just act all the scenes in one spot. So that's what I'm comparing in my mind. But if you mean two people who've done a tape on the spot, but the one has just done, I don't know, better lighting or planned their eye lines better, then of course little things like that can make a difference of how you read on camera. But again, if you're not right for the role, then it doesn't matter how well you've set all of that up, you're not right for the role. If you are right for the role and you're next to someone who's done that a little bit better than you and they are also right for it, then yeah, maybe they will get the advantage because their tape is planned better with little tricks and things. But it's really difficult to say. And it also depends on the person. I can't speak for other casting directors. I don't know what they relate to when they watch a tape. I can only speak for myself. And myself, I'm looking for different things. Of course, things look brilliant when they're set up nicely and everything. But that's not the core of what I'm looking for when I watch a tape. But I can't tell you what other casting directors are receiving on their end.
For example, I was thinking about, and that's actually the role that I didn't get and my friend did get it. And look, honestly, later we compared our self-tapes because we have really good relationships. We just try to help out each other as much as we can. And they're very close in terms of performance, but there are small details like I hold the pause here, he hold the pause there, like it's just small things that could be different. But there was one moment because the character was smoking in the scene, and I was like, I'm not smoking in the house, so I vaped, and he actually did smoke, and I think like smoking vaping is very different, especially for that particular character. Like, could that be something that kind of swayed not even the casting director, but my performance somewhere else? How do you look at things like that?
I mean, it's difficult to say without seeing the tapes for myself and seeing what the brief was and what the character was and all these things. But I guess when there is specific action written into a script that informs the demeanor of the character, you don't want to change that too much because they've written the character that way. So as you say, smoking and vaping are two very different energies. So I would have, even if you hadn't lit a cigarette, in your case, I would have used a real cigarette or a prop cigarette and still mimed, just smoked an unlit cigarette rather than vape, because it's just going to bring across a different impression entirely.
That's what I thought later, honestly. After I sent the tapes, like a few days later, I was like, it's completely different. It's like it's better to mime with the actual, not lit cigarette, because it is different energy. How do you think about basically actions in self-tapes? How much do you think actors should try to recreate actions that are not really recreatable in a static camera, static, environment?
Really just up to your discretion and what you can make work while still looking comfortable. So little things like a cigarette or, a look over your shoulder, if it starts with you facing the wall and then you turn into the scene or whatever it is, things that you can make work in that space, do them, because then you're just showing more of what they're actually asking for. But if there's movements and props and things that you don't have access to, there's always ways around that. I think it's more seeing how you handle that and the dramatic intention that comes in behind whatever choice you make to compensate for that. That's important, because let's say you were meant to be drinking. Okay, well, this is something that's more that in your control. I was going to say you're meant to be drinking a glass of wine, but you choose a beer. But that's kind of like the cigarette vape thing, right? I'm trying to think of like a bigger example. Maybe you're meant to be shoved off camera. If you're able to find an environment in which you can show that, then great. But if you can't, it's more about showing the intensity of the emotion that would come across if you were shoved. So even if you're just doing this, in the script, it's a big shove, but you only have space to do a little shove. Yeah. But what's happening in your face and your eyes when you get shoved? It's that adjustment that shows us whether you can deliver or not. So don't worry, don't focus on the shove, focus on what the person's reaction is to the shove.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I did the self-tape, I think for the same project, where my character gets punched in the face, and I read it with my friend, and we really did quite a few of, those takes where, we tried to recreate, a little bit of, stage combat with his fist coming into the frame, and, me kind of doing this. But the thing is, some of them looked silly, like the rest of the tape was good, but this beginning wasn't done by a professional. He does, my friend doesn't do any stage combat. He tried to do whatever I told him, and from the static camera, like with a limited environment, it's harder to do. And then you think like, what do I do? It's a good tape, but this hard, like this first bit looks a little bit, will it take the casting director out of it if we start like this, but the rest of the tape is good?
Yeah, I think so. I think if what you're trying is distracting and it's not coming across the way you want it to, don't do it. Rather than don't have anyone, you react as if you're being punched, but don't have him actually punch, show the reaction. It's okay that it's mimed or it's faked or whatever it is, rather that and still have a solid reaction than be distracted by what you were trying to do, but it actually doesn't land.
So would it be fair to say if you can do some of the actions that you can't properly recreate that as you would do on set with different angle or whatever, do them kind of almost off camera and then come into the frame, or try to hide those things but still try to show that it happened?
I think it's going to depend on how specific the instruction is, because if they want to see your combat skills or they want to see your acting in that kind of scene, you want to make sure that they are being offered what, that they can see everything they've asked for. If it's not vital to this, you have to use your own discretion, because if they're wanting to see you can act in a brawl, then you need to show them that. And if you haven't they say, oh, I want the tape tomorrow, and you've got no one to film with you, then mime it and fit as much of it on camera as you can. But if it's more about what you're acting, and so it's line, punch, and then more lines. If that punching in between is going to take away from the tape and it's not actually vital to whether or not you get the role, then either change that or cut it out and just do the lines. I think if they're wanting to see your combat skills, they're going to specifically ask you, add this action in the scene, or send a tape of, maybe you have a tape from a combat class you did that you can pin on the end of your tape and say, I didn't have the space to film the fight scene in my home, but here is another fight scene of me in my class pinned at the end of the tape. Then they can see you still have the skill to deliver it. It's a difficult one. Yeah, a difficult one. You have to just use your discretion, and maybe if you have an agent that you can have those kinds of discussions with, you can get advice from them. Some actors are very happy to just make those decisions themselves and go for it, and then other people need a little bit of input and information. And
how distracting is when an actor has to record it himself or herself and themselves, and to edit in the lines of the reader with their own voice?
I don't mind it so much. The reader's off camera, and the actor usually knows the way that they want to take the scene, the kind of dramatic arc they want to give it and everything. So they're going to read the lines in a way that supports that. Whereas if you're getting your housemate or your partner or somebody who maybe isn't an actor to read in with you, they might not feed you the type of dramatic choices that help you build the scene. So I think if you can get someone to read in who has a little bit of dramatic instinct or is also an actor and can help you build the scene and show that in their voice, that's always helpful. It's not necessary, but it's helpful. But there's nothing wrong with reading in your own lines and building that scene yourself. I think we've all adjusted to the fact that that's just part of the self-taping thing now.
Let's switch a little bit to in-room casting. What do you expect, if anything, when an actor walks through the door into the room?
I've never really thought about it. I've not had any specific expectations in terms of okay, I expect an actor to be prepared, and to be respectful. But
does it happen that they are not prepared if you're coming into audition?
Sometimes, yeah. But sometimes people are just nervous, or they've come straight from their job, and it's a difficult thing because I can only speak for myself, and generally, I'm quite understanding of those things. And I always have a hard copy of the script on hand in case anyone, like they have learned their lines, but they're going blank in the room because it can be a nerve-wracking environment and all these things. And, you know, I want to make an actor feel comfortable because, again, I'm on their side. I want to get the best out of them. They also want to give their best. So there's never trying to create a tense environment where someone feels intimidated or like they can't ask for something or whatever it is. But yeah, I do expect that they've at least put that effort in. And then if it is clear that they forget a line or they are nervous, all those things, that you can just handle those things in the moment. But what I will say is I have been in a situation where an actor has done a really good tape, but then they get into the room and they're so nervous in the room, they're just really not able to deliver what they did in the tape or give us anything more to work on. So we can't consider them any further because everyone else we saw then at the recall did deliver, at a better level. And so I think it's important for an actor to ground themselves before they get into the room. And maybe it's also just going to be an experience thing. But as much as I want to say we're understanding of nerves, at the same time, we can't see what we need to see if your nerves are overriding your performance. And we can't trust that you're going to deliver on set. If you're nervous now, how are you not going to be nervous on set? Mm-hmm. So then it's like, okay, well, maybe your challenge then is overcoming your nerves. So I'm not saying nerves are a bad thing and they can't be understood, and the right kind of casting director is going to help put you at ease and say, okay, do this again and try this and give you more to work with so that you ease into it and then maybe can let go of the nerves and deliver in the room. There is also, that's what I expect of myself, and that's what I would hope for if I were an actor and coming into a room. And it's like, I might start off really nervous, but they give me enough time and attention to then give me a second take and a third take so that I can show them what I'm able to do. But if you've given the actor that chance, you've given them their feedback, they haven't applied their feedback, they're still showing nerves, and then your 10 minutes with them is done and you've not gotten out of them what you need, then what can you do, kind of thing. So being prepared, but also doing the work to ground yourself, to come in and listen. Directors said, given this feedback, okay, now try it like this. And then the actor does it exactly the same way because they prepared it that way. You need to be adaptive too. So there's a lot of different aspects because, again, you can't trust an actor who isn't able to apply feedback.
Is it a normal thing for a casting director or director in the room give directions that maybe are not what they actually want from the scene, but just to see how an actor reacts to redirection?
Yeah, definitely. Just and to see the range, because we've maybe asked you to prepare this scene, but we know that 2 scenes later you need to be angry, but we've not asked you to prepare that scene. So you might go, okay, well, show us anger now so that we know you can do it, kind of thing. And we know that you can listen and apply like you're going to have to do on set. And so I think when actors get too stuck on what they've prepared, and then they say, okay, yeah, got it. And then they deliver it the same way again. And then doing themselves an injustice. But again, I guess it's a nerves thing. It's reverting to what's been prepared. So there needs to be a good balance of having made a choice and coming in with a choice and being prepared for that, but then also being able to take feedback and apply it in the room and improvise and flow with the people in the room and connect and listen. And I guess that's also just a skill that gets developed over time.
So being flexible. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, you know what's weird? I noticed that before. I'm genuinely less nervous right now when I perform, no matter where, than I was, for example, 6-7 years ago. Mm. But I did notice before that I was more nervous in auditions, in class, than I am on set. Because on set somehow I'm like, they cast me.
Yeah.
I know I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
I know that I prepared. They've seen what I can do.
Yeah.
So, and you kind of like, this is my work. I came here to do the job that I know, hopefully, I can do and I can deliver. And like, there's some nerves, of course, always some nerves, some excitement, but you're in the flow, and in the class or in the casting, like, it's not, I know I'm not being judged, but I'm kind of being judged.
Yeah, you still sort of feel like you need to prove yourself, which is natural. Auditioning is a skill.
Yeah. So, to help actors before they get in the room, is there anything that you think they should remember before they open this door? Something that they should think that might help them to calm the nerves and just to deliver?
I'm going to repeat what I've said before. It's the casting director's on your side. They want you to be good. They've called you in because they believe you have something valuable to offer. And they want to see it. They want to see what you have to offer. There's nothing to be scared of.
I've heard this thing. Some actors said, actors always look online for different things that might help them. And there are people giving advice. And there was advice like, if you're an actor, you go into the room, no matter if you did a mistake, if you did something, if it didn't work, don't apologize. Is it true?
I mean, to some degree, you want to know that the person is confident in their ability. So if they have a very apologetic way about them, oh, sorry, you're not seeing that confidence that that person believes they have the skills to offer the job, do the job. But obviously, if something's been misunderstood or, saying, oh, I'm so sorry, it's just a normal human experience. It's polite, but I think it's got more to do with having a apologetic attitude in general, which then gives the impression of not being confident in yourself versus, you don't want to work with someone who's too arrogant to apologize if they've done something wrong or said something wrong either. So it's all, within a specific context, I guess.
And on average, let's say if I went to the room, I did some performance. It went somewhat well, but we still don't know. And I got out. If I could listen to a conversation that happens after I left, what would I hear? What do you think would surprise me? What usually happens if I was a fly on the wall in the audition room after an actor left the room?
I mean, it's going to differ from person to person and who the team is and what the performance was. It could be anything from immediately going, no, they're not right for it, to going, yeah, they were great. And then like discussing what we liked and what we didn't. And I mean, it could be so many different things. I don't know how to answer that.
Do you think it would be beneficial for an actor to try to get involved in a casting for some project just to see the inside the kitchen?
Not necessarily, because again, I think everyone works differently. I think every production's going to be different. And I think if an actor starts to be too focused on the aspects that they can't control, they're just going to drive themselves crazy and they're going to lose sight of what their job actually is. An actor needs to focus on delivering what they've been asked to deliver. If they want to now see through the casting director's eyes so that they can try and figure out what they can adapt, they're not going to be focusing on what's important anymore. And they're going to have so many different opinions and voices in their head that they're not going to know what to do anymore.
When you're casting a project, when you see an actor deliver whatever you gave them in a room or in a tape, can you easily see that they're trying to guess what you need to and be that rather than being themselves in that situation as an actor is like not as a character, but like bringing themselves to the role rather than trying to guess what you want?
It depends on the kind of actor you are and the kind of person you are and what the role is.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are more naturally like the role, and some people are just brilliant actors who adapt to the role. And then on top of the acting, everyone is a different personality type. So some actors come in and they ask a lot of questions and they want to deliver it exactly how you've asked. And some actors want to just deliver what they prepared with their own instincts and then take it from there. So one of the previous or most recent castings I did, you know, they would come into the room and we'd ask them, what do you prefer? Do you want to go straight into the scene and then have some feedback? Or would you like to ask us questions first and then go into your scene? And we let them decide. Whereas, you know, in some productions, we might immediately just know how we want to lead with it. And then they will react however they're going to react according to their personality and the way in which they've prepared. So there is no cookie cutter answer to it. Everybody is different and everyone prepares differently and delivers differently, and their real personality versus how much of that is in the character versus how much of that isn't in the character is different for everybody. So again, it's the part of the skill of being the casting director and being the host in that situation and liaison in that situation is reading that. A lot of what I feel I do when I'm casting is behavioral recognition, being able to be a good judge of character and have a sensitivity towards people's states when they walk into a room, what emotional state they might be in, what level of energy they're at, what their personalities are like versus what they deliver. All these things that come from years and years of working with actors and in different jobs within the industry and, you know, having any sorts of friendships, relationships, working on myself, watching movies, understanding different styles. All of this comes together so that when someone walks into the room, immediately you have a sense of so many different aspects, and it's different for every person that walks into the room. And so how I work with them adapts to who I'm working with. And then considering the director. I know the director is this kind of person. I know the director is looking for this. I know they're expecting this. They're going to want that. And then running things in that sense, making sure, okay, these boxes need to be ticked. So also running the room to make sure all those boxes are ticked whilst working with this actor's personality who's right in front of me. So yeah, I know it's frustrating because you want me to just tell you, oh, it's like this. Yeah. But there is no clear answer. And even what you said about what should an actor think when they walk in the room, I know my ethos, which is we're on your side. But I understand that actors walk into a room and sometimes they don't feel like the casting director's on their side. And maybe people don't even look up at them, or, you know, whoever's on the panel looks like they're in a bad mood and all these things. And that all affects how you can feel when you walk into a room and the amount of confidence in which you deliver your performance. But I still think even if they are not giving you that supportive energy of we're on your side, still think it to yourself. Still perform as if they are on your side.
Why would someone in a panel not look at you?
Who knows? Doing other things, had a bad morning, seen too many people that day. I can't speak for others. I think I find it personally disrespectful. But there's also a balance. You know, sometimes I need to be making notes. So I'm looking up and I'm looking down, looking up, looking down.
Let's talk about acting agencies, representation, and social media. I know, like, it's a kind of self-answering question, but still, how important is it to have the right agent? In terms of, obviously, you want an agent that is good enough, but other projects that are gate closed for some agents?
I think the most important thing is having an agent that you feel supports what you want out of an agent, and that you can have those discussions with. You might be someone who just wants to get on with your job and let them get on with their job. And so you don't need that kind of close relationship. Or you might be the kind of person who wants to be able to call your agent and say, okay, this and this and this, can we talk through that? You need to decide what it is you want and expect, and then meet with agents who match up with that. And obviously be realistic about your expectations. Like, they're not there to be your emotional support, you know. They're there to do a job, but in terms of access, that's only the second consideration, because it doesn't help if you have an agent who has access to the biggest briefs, but you don't feel like you have any relationship with them, and maybe you feel like you are being a little bit forgotten, or they're not supporting you in the way that you don't feel like they're advocating for you the way that they are for and I don't like to think that any agents intentionally do that, but I have heard from actors that they have felt that their agents forget about them a bit and they don't advocate for them and all that sort of thing. So you can have all that agent can have all the access in the world to all the different auditions, but if you and them are not in sync with each other, you might not be getting into those rooms. On the other hand, you might have an agent who isn't in direct contact with the massive briefs that are going out for, you know, whatever project it is you're interested in. But because they believe in you so much and you're on the same page and they know this is what you want to do and all these things, the moment they get a whiff of that project, they are going to reach out and they're going to make sure that they do open those doors and they do open that avenue for you, because they believe strongly in you as their client. And so they're going to reach higher. And by them doing that, they're going to pull themselves up as well as you up into that opportunity. So, of course, there are agents who already have existing relationships with casting directors, and casting directors will call them and say, hey, we have this film and blah, blah, blah. And if you're on their books and you're a good actor and you have a good relationship, then great. But I wouldn't disregard an agent who isn't in that inner circle yet if they are the right dynamic for you, because they will work. If you're with the right agent, they should be working to get into that circle and gain that trust. Mm-hmm. And if they believe you are a strong enough actor, they'd be using what you have to show for how brilliant you are to help get into those rooms. So they're just going, hey, look, this person is brilliant. Look how brilliant they are. And they're knocking on that door, and then that door opens.
But is it possible for good actors to lose out on opportunities because of weak representation?
Yeah. Definitely. But you would also hope that a good actor would eventually land with an agent who does have that access. So if you feel that the dynamic isn't right, and then you should be looking for representation that is right for you. Mm-hmm. And if you are a strong enough actor, you hopefully would get the kind of representation that has access to that. It is very difficult because there are loads of brilliant actors who struggle to find representation for so many reasons. We have someone like this on our books already, or, maybe you're brilliant, but you haven't got as much on your CV and they're already representing 100 people. And there's so many business aspects involved so again, I don't want to speak for other agents. I know how I feel things should be. And I know that things aren't the way that they should be for a lot of people. And, we don't live in an ideal world. Yes, there are barriers in terms of access, but those barriers can always be broken down. Mm-hmm. So if you're with a brilliant agent who has loads of access, but you don't have a good relationship with them, then you don't have that access. And if you're with an agent who you feel supports you and you support them and they're working hard for you, then you should ultimately trust that they are going to break down that barrier for you. You need to make that decision for yourself. Mm-hmm. Both are true, both are possible. Some people do lose opportunities because of their agents, and some people leave agents who could actually get them great opportunities because they think there's a better agent out there for them. It really boils down to you making that decision for yourself.
Okay, that's fair enough. Socials. Mm-hmm. I've heard that before, and I think it's almost, people don't know how true it is or not, but do actors win or lose roles based on their number of the following on social networks?
Depends what the role is and what the production is. If it's something that requires, they specifically want someone with loads of followers, then yes, then you're losing out on that if you don't have thousands of followers. Or if they're wanting a name to sell the film on or whatever it is, yes, of course, it's today's world. However, I don't think that if it's not part of who you are, if social media drains your energy,
it drains everyone's energy. It was proven.
If you've, I don't know how to put this. If you don't actually want to be on social media, then don't be on social media. Or if you're not concerned about how many followers you have, then it doesn't matter. If your goal is to be one of those actors who has thousands of followers and lands jobs because of your followers, fine. That's a business decision. Then you need to understand you're going to have to spend hours every day creating content and pushing the algorithms and, hey guys, and doing all of that. And if you make that decision and that commitment and you feel like you can honor that, great for you. I mean, it's not going to harm you depending on the content you're putting out there. But if that's not you and you resent it and it's only going to make you hate the industry more and it's only going to drain your energy and all these things, then don't do it. Because you don't need extra things that are going to be taking from you when you already give so much of yourself. Mm-hmm. And you don't need another thing to influence your self-worth, likes and clicks and follows and all these things and what they mean actually does not reflect on you as a person at all. And you need to be able to stay stable and confident and grounded within yourself in order to be the best actor you can be. And if social media does not support that, then don't focus on it. And there are so many acting roles where that's not going to matter. There are a few where it does matter, but it's only for a very small amount of people that fall into that category of those roles where it's going to matter. In your casting bracket, for example, I don't think it's going to matter how many followers you have when you get cast and the kinds of roles you get cast in. They're just going, is he a good actor? Does he have the skills to fulfill the job? Ticking those boxes kind of thing. Did he deliver a good audition? They're not, unless you are suddenly going to play something that I wouldn't expect from you at all, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask about it because I don't love social media. I actually resent all of that side of things.
But the thing is, I've heard that there are sometimes cases when there are two actors who are going for the role and they're kind of delivered, same level-ish performances in their auditions, but then someone has tens of thousands of subscribers and someone doesn't, and they think like, you know what, it's a business decision. It's better to get this person because they can sell more.
Yeah. Definitely happens. Yes, that's a reality. But if you are the person who hasn't got the thousands of followers, think about, okay, now you put all your time and energy into getting the followers, and it makes you unhappy, and it's taking all that extra effort and all these things. By the time you then get to the role that you need to audition for, you're not delivering your true self, and you're not going to have anything left to give to the role because you're giving all of it to social media, which is not naturally you. There are some people who are great on social media and they know how to plan it and they have the personalities and can go for it, and that's great for them. But if that's not you and you force it, I do think it's going to steal something very vital from you and take away from what you have to offer to begin with. So fine, someone else might get the role this time because they have more followers than you do. But the next time there's going to be a role that doesn't matter, and then you're going to get it. It's a very personal, individual thing, like picking an agent. You decide if it's something that you want to take on and go for. And you have to have very, very tough skin to not let it affect you. When you look at that video and it's only got 1,000 views today and then 10,000 tomorrow and then 100 today, and what happened? And if you know that you're not going to spend your day spiraling in that, rather than working on your craft, spending time with your family, seeing your friends, going to the gym, you're now sitting doing this. What can I do to get more likes? You're just robbing yourself.
All right. Well, to be fair, I totally agree with you on social networks, and that there are so many studies that show that they make people more miserable than happy, and they're rotting your brains, especially the shorts.
I actually do have a little bit extra to add to that. I can only speak for myself. The projects I've worked on recently, I've been in a situation where I've gone, these two people are our top two. This one has 20,000 followers. This one has 400 followers. They're both brilliant. Here are the options. And the director goes, I want her, the one with the 400, because she is right for the role. And she's who I see in that role. And it's happened a few times lately where, again, I give them both options. And I say, here are people who can do the job, but also have a following. And here are people who don't have a following, but are also brilliant for the job. And I leave it to the director. And again, if your intentions are in the right place of wanting the best project possible, there are cases in which they're still going to pick the actor who's right. And, you know, the social media side can only help promotion, but it's not always going to be the deciding factor.
Do you ever, or other casting directors, ever check socials like Instagram, for example? Not even in terms of how many subscribers people have, but in terms of like checking out the person, who are they, what's the vibe?
Sometimes, yeah, just to get a better grasp. Sometimes it's just more photos than the headshots. Sometimes it's seeing other things that they're up to, work that they're doing. I mean, I definitely don't spend time cross-referencing, but sometimes it does come up, and then seeing that person's profile does add an extra layer of perspective.
AI. What do you think? I mean, not in general, it would be like we would record a completely separate episode about just AI. But how does it affect your work? Is there anything that happens that helps you? Is there anything that happens that you believe never should get into the casting process?
Yeah. It hasn't affected me directly in terms of how I cast at all. I don't agree with AI actors, obviously. I do think that actors need to be a lot more aware and conscious now of contracts they sign when they're going into commercials and all these sorts of things. Sometimes written into the contracts, there's things where they can use your image for this and that and that. So again, either making yourself really informed about those things or having an agent who you trust to always check for those things. And then it's down to your moral values. If you're okay with a company replicating, this and that for this, and you get your buyout and that's that, fine. If you're not okay with it on a moral level because you don't believe that people should be replicated by AI, then that's just what you stand for. And then those are the decisions you have to make. You have to realize, I'm going to have to let go of those jobs because I'm standing by what I believe in. Bigger films, I can just say from my personal point of view, I don't like watching things that have loads of AI, generated visuals worked into them. I appreciate a set that is designed and created by real people. I do think that there's ways in which it makes certain things more efficient and environmentally more friendly and economical and all of these things. But I don't think it should ever be taking away from someone in order to do that. I don't think it should be taking someone's job. I don't think it should be taking creativity out of things. I don't think it should be replacing real people on any level. And I definitely don't think it should be using from you without your permission. And there's so much that's written into things now that you don't even know where they can use your voice and your, even thinking more on the music side of things, of how now if you just release on certain platforms, you want people to hear your music. But by releasing on those platforms, you've already allowed AI to learn from what you've created. And then you can argue, well, AI already, you're not teaching it anything it doesn't already know. But on the other hand, if you hear your voice or a part of something you've written in an AI generated song and it's making money, I've heard horror stories about people whose their YouTube videos have been stripped and regenerated through AI and resold, and now they can't make royalties on their own music. And I think it's only a matter of time before those sorts of things start slipping into the acting industry. And so I think it's just important to remain aware and turn down anything that steals from you like that. And if enough people say that they are not willing to be parts of those productions, then hopefully there will be less of that. On the other hand, there's always someone else willing to do it. So whether how much you decide to fight against it or work with it is up to you as an individual.
Have you already seen actors trying to use some of AI tools for their showreels, headshots, etc.?
I mean, not at a level that we're not already used to, like editing and filtering and things like that. But I think we can also see it, and if you see something that's too doctored, it's not what you want. As a casting director, you want to see what the person really looks like. You want to see what the scene was really like. I mean, sometimes if it's a harmless, you're in the scenes in a forest, but you're in your flat and you've put a fake AI forest in the background. As long as it doesn't look ridiculous.
Look, I've seen on Facebook people posting their headshots that were clearly AI generated. What do you think about it? Fully, including their faces.
There's no point in that. I'm never going to call someone into a room whose headshot is AI generated.
But soon.
Or even just overly edited, because they're presenting a lie to you. That's not how they're going to look when they walk into the room.
All right. Look, I think it's time for us to look at my spotlight page. So the purpose of this, I want to see how casting director reacts to my personal spotlight page in terms of showreel, headshots, information like a bio or my skills. What should I remove? What should I keep? What works, what doesn't, and why? As a casting director, when you open someone's spotlight profile, you're probably opening it when someone was submitted for a role. What do you usually expect to see?
I mean, you want to see professional headshots, but you also want to see what that person actually looks like.
Mhm.
So that balance of it looking really presentable, but also still like you.
Is it worth, for example, with headshots, to put your main headshot neutral, or if I mostly go for the parts of Russian baddies to see the headshot that reflects that?
So if you have an agent submitting for you, or even if you're self-submitting on a brief, you can pick which headshot you submit with.
Mhm.
So you just choose the one that's most suitable to the character that you're applying for. In general, for your profile, it depends what your personal goal is. If your goal is, I want to be seen for more than the baddie, put a neutral headshot on. If you're going, I'm really leaning into that being my selling point, then make that your main headshot. So there's no right or wrong. It just depends on what you want.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's look at my profile that hopefully you can see on your screens now, right?
Yeah.
As well. Walk me through it. What do you think, and what's your reaction?
Yeah. Well, look, all the categories are already set up for all the information that a casting director wants to see. So as long as you're filling in everything that's on the CV, when you're doing your editing, everything that you can fill it in. Make sure that all the skills you put in are skills that you can walk into the room tomorrow and deliver. So, okay, let's start by looking at your bio. London-based, Russian-speaking actor with a big frame and mean look. So, cool, like overview, this is where you live, this is what your language is. I would say, again, if you're leaning into the baddie kind of role, fine, leave in mean look. But I do feel like that's limiting, especially as a first line.
Yeah.
And maybe just because I know you have more range than that. I know you do comedy really well. I know you can play soft roles really well.
Stop. No,
So I wouldn't maybe put mean look in there because I do think that limits you. But if that is what you've decided is your thing, then fine, because it's being clear about what you have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Training and everything, I think, is only really necessary to mention there if you're a recent graduate or it's a very specific kind of training, because there is a category lower down on the CV where you mention all your training anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to fill the bio up too much. You want the bio to just provide the main points. Your most recent strong credits, fine, include that like you have. And then a little bit, that little line about your podcast and everything, that's great because it's just a small insight into a different, something else you have going on, but is still kind of industry related. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a great bio, but it could be narrowed down a little bit. It could be chopped down a little bit to just the most relevant things.
Nice.
Again, because most of that information actually just repeats later on your CV. Mm-hmm. Your headshots, really clear. They look like you. There's different range of expressions. There's pro shots from, actual films and series that you've done.
Is it worth? So, for example, as a fourth image in my gallery, there is a shot of me with a gun. It was made at a professional setting at the training that I did with Exilium. Is it worth to include shots like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think these look good. I mean, if it's just you at the training in, with your buddy kind of thing, then no. But these look like it could be a shot from a film, So yeah, that it looks great. I can see your face and your expression. Also the fact that you know how to work with a gun. What I will say about it is if you're adding in action shots, it's only worth adding them if I can clearly see you in them. So like the ones that you have are great. But there's no point in putting any other action shots where we can't actually see, you can see there's a gun involved or something, but we can't actually see you in the shot kind of thing. Yeah, I think your headshots are great. And I like that you have, your studio headshots that are just you with different expressions and then a couple of sort of action shots, but still professional looking and clear.
Is there anything that's missing from your perspective?
I wouldn't say so, no.
Would you want to see as a casting director, for example, because all of the headshots that I have there, all the photos, it's with facial hair. Would you want to see me with, looking stupid like an old fat baby, but without the beard?
I think it's always worth having a picture clean shaven, just so that that's there as an option. But if this is your general look, then this is how you want the majority of your pictures to look. If one day you decide to shave and you have someone who can take a quick professional shot of you, great. But it's not like I don't look at your profile and feel like that is missing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are there any big red flags for headshots that like 2-3 that actors need to know never to do?
Well, we always want to be able to see your eyes, and don't wear dark colors on a dark background, because then you're just a floating head, especially when you're scrolling through Spotlight submissions and your picture's about this small. Initially, when we first see your picture's about this small. So if you're just a little floating head, we can't see anything. And then having just multiple shots of the same expression is no point either. There's so many people who go, oh, these are the 5 pictures I look the best in. It's like, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking to see who you are as a person, as an actor, your range of expressions, not which pictures you look the most attractive in or whatever it is. So you want to make sure that there's range across the couple pictures that you do put on there. So you've got your location, and then if people have bases anywhere else that they know that I have family there, I could stay there if I was filming, that kind of thing. It's always good to add that. And the same goes for most of these categories, is like being as specific and extensive as possible. Because when casting directors do their own searches, so they don't put a brief out, but they know, okay, we're looking for someone of this nationality who speaks this language, who's located here, etc. We use those filters, and then Spotlight will show us everyone who has those things on their profiles. So if you don't have that on your profile, you're not going to come up in the search. But so you might have the skill or the right language or location, if you haven't put it in there, you're not going to come up as an option. And I think a very important one now is ethnicity or heritage, because a lot of the roles that people are searching for are very specific. So we do searches like that when we're looking for something that is very specific. So if there's a language you speak or heritage you have or a base that you have that isn't on there, it could exclude you from someone's search accidentally.
Mm-hmm. What about my playing age? And here I actually need to know your personal opinion, because here's the thing. I've heard that right now it's set to 32 to 42 years old, which is, it's a big range, 10 years. Also, I'm almost 43. But I've heard quite a few times recently that I do look younger than 42. So what would be your advice in terms of how big of a range should people set? And personally for me, what do you think is it the correct one?
Okay, again, different for everyone, because everyone looks different and presents differently. Generally, I wouldn't advise more than a 10-year gap in the playing age range. But you do look like you could span 32 to 42. And I think it's going to depend how they dress you, how they style you, what the character is. I would believe that you're 32, but I'd also believe that you're 42, if you told me either. So this is good for you. But for someone else, it might be different. I think when I put a brief out, I don't usually like to put more than a 5-year gap in the range. If a character is very specific, I put a 2-year gap in the range, but at the most 5. So I kind of want to turn that on its head and say it's the same for actors. It's like, if you can be more specific, great, but you also don't want to exclude yourself from something that you could be right for. So anything between 5 and 10 years, if you genuinely can look within that range, great. And it might be slightly different for theatre, because theatre actors can age themselves up or down on stage even more so. But for film actors, it's good to be a little bit more specific. So it's just about knowing yourself and then maybe getting input from your agent and those around you, and they say, yeah, I believe you within this 5-year range or within this 10-year range. But very few people can actually fit in more than a 10-year bracket.
I'm the lucky one. All right, so we spoke about the ethnicity, heritage, appearance, and everything. Can we look into, check my showreel?
Yeah. So I did watch your showreel earlier and your different clips up here and everything. I mean, I think your showreel's great. It opens with you as it should. If I always tell actors this, don't let your showreel open on a scene where someone else's face is first. It's your showreel. Open on your face. But the footage you have here is, it's professional. It's from actual jobs you've done or from professional footage you've recorded. It shows a good range. It's, a decent amount of time. I think 3.5 minutes is like, you don't need a showreel that's really that much longer than that. I'd say 1.5 to 4 minutes is like the max I would do a showreel. And then I like that you've got the separate clips. So it's like, okay, I don't want to scroll through a showreel. I just want to click here on your firearms, and that's all I see is your firearms. And then I click here and that's comedy. I just see your comedy. And so the way that you've presented it is how I really like to look at reels. Is I can look at all your film stuff, or I can look at very specific things, and you have them labeled very clearly. But I do also want to say that your profile is going to be a lot how I like it, because you come from an agency to which I'm very closely connected. So,
Yeah.
No, I think it looks great, and all the footage is great. And the same for your CV, it's all very clear, and I can see that you have recent credits. I can see what you've been doing for the past couple of years.
In terms of credits, I have one question about one particular credit that might be useful for other people, because I did this job on Secret Invasion, Marvel Secret Invasion. I was cast, I was paid for it. I did a scene with Emilia Clarke, but then the scene was cut from the actual series. And I still have it. It's named the Secret Invasion / cut scene with my role and everything. Is it worth to have those? Because it is a job that I did.
Yeah.
But no one can see it because it was cut.
Doesn't matter. Put it on your CV. You did the job. You did the audition, you got cast, you went on set, you did the job, you got paid. It's not your fault it was cut from. It's added to your
Well, as far as we know, it's not my fault.
Definitely add it to your CV. It's work that you did.
Is it worth to remove some credits, or?
If they're really from ages ago, I'd say anything that's maybe older than 5 years ago, unless they are very big credits, you can remove them, especially if you have been working enough lately that you have enough on your CV. But some people maybe are returning to the industry and the only credits they have are older, so then leave those credits on. It depends from person to person. But for you specifically, you've worked, you've done something at least every year for the past couple of years and everything. So,
and then what we get through the credits, and then we get to what is accent, dialects, languages, sports, vehicle licenses, etc.
Just do accent. Only put accents on there that you can deliver at a very strong level. Same with languages. Or at least make sure that your agent knows the level to which you speak that language, because some people speak conversationally, some at a native level, some fluently. So then when they submit you, they can add that note, because it's always awkward to get called in, for something that you can maybe say, can have a brief conversation, but then they want someone who can actually interpret the script on the spot and things like that. Same with sports. If you knew you had to go in and asked to, play football to a certain level tomorrow, would you be ready to do that?
Well, I'm thinking about football. Maybe it's time for me to remove it. Even though I did play semi-professionally, as I said, it was a very long time ago.
if you have that skill and you want to add it to your performance repertoire, then spend time revisiting that skill and then put it on your CV. Don't put it on your CV if you're going to be unsure about it when you step into the room tomorrow. Because no casting director is going, we're looking for someone who played football 10 years ago. If, you know, to play a football player in this film.
Well, I mean, look, I'm almost too old to play a professional footballer. About skills, quick question. Are there any skills that you would advise to actors to invest in, apart from actual acting, obviously, but I mean, any skills that in your experience come up in castings more often than others? For example, I know stage combat, firearms, or something like that.
Again, just depends on what kind of roles you want to go for. For you, yes, all this fight training you have is amazing because it supports the kind of roles you're generally being seen for. Or if you're an actor or an actress who loves fantasy and you know that your goal is to be in a fantasy series and that's maybe going to require some sort of sword combat or riding horses, then do that training, because then when that role comes in and they're saying looking for someone who can ride a horse, you know you can say confidently that you can do it. And there you're one step closer to your dream role. But if you're not too bothered about that and you just want to be in commercials, then maybe there would be a commercial that requires horse riding, but you know what I mean? Like, we don't have endless resources and time to invest in getting all the skills that could ever possibly be asked for. So think about what you want and invest in developing those skills that will take you closer to your goals.
But is there anything that comes up in your briefs more often than not?
I'd say more accent-wise than actual skill. It depends. Like, some projects are going to require people who can play instruments. Some projects are going to ask those who are maybe a bit more physically trained. If it's a horror, can you do combat? Can you do roles? That kind of thing. Whereas a lot of projects might ask, can they do an RP accent? Or my briefs, the things I've worked for, I've always liked to cast people in their natural accents as much as possible, because there's always someone you can cast who's going to be brilliant, who already speaks in that accent, or you don't want to be making someone act in an accent that they're not comfortable with if they're right for the role and the accent is irrelevant. But bigger projects, if you know, might say, okay, this is a period piece. Do you want to be in Bridgerton? You must be able to do an RP accent. And so if it's your goal to be in something like Bridgerton, make sure you work on an RP accent. So that is a skill too. So I'd say things like that more than more specific skills like combat. But in general, yeah, combat, horse riding, sword, all the things that could come up in history pieces or fantasy pieces, great to have. If that's not really your thing, then don't put too much pressure on it. You know, people should never be putting themselves out financially and time-wise to gain skills they think are necessary if it's not actually going to serve their goals.
Are there any skills that you can think of that people really shouldn't spend their time and money on at the moment? Unless they really like to do it.
No, I mean, it's always great to have as many skills as possible that you can offer to your performance. So I wouldn't say that. I would just say don't put yourself in a compromising position to gain a skill just because you think you have to do it for the sake of acting. Anything you can do in addition is great. But I don't think people should be, I think people can put loads of time and money into gaining 20 different skills and still not land a role because they focused on gaining all those skills instead of just what the job is, which is the acting. So I think it can, of course, only broaden the number of opportunities you have. But it shouldn't compromise your life balance in order to do it. You shouldn't be giving of yourself to something that isn't also nourishing you back sometimes.
All right. And the last bit, training. Is there anything that I should remove? Is there anything that I should? Well, I mean, I can't add anything.
I think your Spotlight CV is in really good shape. All your training is clear and to the point. All your skills and everything is clear and to. I mean, I don't really have any, except for the bio maybe just being shortened a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think it looks great. And I'm sorry if that's not helpful enough.
That's helpful for me.
You want me to be like, oh, it's this and this and this, so you can have something to change. But I think it looks great.
All right. So if you want your profile to be as good as mine, look at my profile and then cast me in something. I mean, come on. All right. I think that's kind of all I wanted from you. I have just a little bit, just a couple more questions as a closing tradition. But one question before that, is there something that I didn't ask you about, or is there any last thing that you want to say to actors to help them out?
I understand the urge to want to give everything you have to acting. But just remember that life is not acting. There is a whole wheel of life and so many different aspects to your own happiness and self-fulfillment and your relationships with the people around you that have nothing to do with acting. So remember to also give back to yourself. Remember to focus on your health and your relationships with people and your spiritual goals and other aspects of your life to balance out and help you feel more grounded about acting when it comes in. Because I think it can feel like the end of the world when news comes in and out and everything in terms of your value and your time is all depending on the audition and whether you got the audition and how you feel about the audition. And sometimes that can be all consuming and it's difficult to get yourself out of spiraling in that world, especially when the industry is not set up to support people and their mental health. And it's not set up to remind them that is not their whole personality and not their whole being. So give equal amounts to your other wheels or to your other slices of life in your wheel of life, as well as to your acting. Remind yourself that it's part of you, but it's not you, and it's not your value. And I think if you feed the other aspects of your life, you will find yourself more grounded and more sincere, and you will have more to offer in your acting because you are nourishing the other aspects of yourself.
This is the advice that keeps coming up on this podcast all the time. So maybe it's time for me to kind of listen to it as well. Closing tradition. It's called Lasting Words. And I want you to take a moment, not too long because I think we're running out of space.
Mm-hmm.
Think of a quote that you maybe read in the book, and you've heard it in a song, or maybe you wrote it, or maybe the loved one told you, or it was something on a billboard, something that you've seen, that you read, and it clicked with you, and maybe changed your perspective on the world, or something else, or just made you laugh at the quote that means something to you.
Oh my goodness! I don't know. I can't think on the spot like that. Okay, I feel so silly saying this in a song that I've written recently, but I haven't recorded yet. It's basically about how the media can focus on the wrong things, the wrong aspects of people, like their bodies instead of their art and things like that. And some of the lyrics go, it talks about that, and it says, but I will dress in leather because they bite. They know how to hunt, but I can fight. So it's just about remembering that we do have the tools to protect ourselves and guard ourselves. And even though there is, another line says, there's beauty in my skin and there is strength in my bones. So it's like, yes, you are beautiful and there is strength in you. And so people are always going to want part of that, but it's up to you to choose how much you give, and don't let them take focus away from the important part and focus on the other things. So they know how to hunt, they know how to take and try and get those things from you, but you know how to fight. Yeah. And so, yeah, the leather is like a metaphor for having tougher skin and all that kind of stuff. So if that's inspiring to anybody.
It is. Look, Nicole, you're the best. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you so much for this conversation. Where can people find you?
On Instagram, I'm at Ricciardi Casting, so RICCIARDI Casting. I have a website, also just ricciardicasting.com. That's it, really.
You can find all the links in the description. You can also find a link to my Spotlight profile that we were talking about, so you can look at it while we're talking about it. And leave comments, subscribe, tell us about your experience as an actor, and thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, look at this. You have finished the episode, the full episode. That's pretty impressive. And you know how YouTube knows what you like and offers you other videos to watch next. Well, YouTube thinks that this video, somewhere here on the screen, might interest you. Take a look. Come on, click on it.